Well, let's start with the last page of the book. Conor McGregor's crypto coin fails miserably. And then now let's explain exactly how he got here and what the fallout is going to be, because I've never seen this happen to anyone. All right, so we got two major stories in this one. We got the Conor McGregor meme coin, which not only failed on a level that is I've never seen before, but we're talking refunds to people, okay? Like this was a catastrophe. When I show you guys the numbers, what they expected to raise and what they got, to the point where they just were like, you know what, never mind, we're just not even doing this. And you understand what that means as it relates to Conor McGregor's influence. It's bad, man. Like, this is really bad for Conor, really bad for anybody who was involved in this coin. And so we're going to get into the details of that. But first, we're going to talk about Cain Velasquez, because there's a major development in this case in terms of when he's going to get released, and a huge twist that I, for whatever reason, had not realized was going to be there. And we're going to get into that one right now. All right, so two major developments in the Cain Velasquez case, neither of which are the fact that he has been transferred to Wasco Prison, because we obviously covered that last week. Wasco Prison, if you guys missed it, is a maximum security prison where a lot of violence happens. Very, very concerning if you don't know the prison system. But I showed some clips from Gunner and Dubs, whose channels are great. They know the California prison system really well, and they said that they think that he's actually going to be safer in Wasco, and that's probably why they moved him there. But what we found out today is that he is eligible for parole. They gave him a date, and also the biggest twist that I had not been aware of was the financial responsibility that he is going to have to the victims in this, the victims in this case. I hadn't even really he was facing prison, so it hadn't even registered to me that there was a civil case that was pending also. And so we got some details in that, and what he's going to owe at the end of this thing, because this is not over at all for them. He's got the criminal case, he's going to do his time, but he's a retired UFC fighter. I mean, he's a retired UFC fighter. Do you guys know a lot of retired UFC fighters that are not commentators, that are just flush with cash, that they could pay millions of dollars to people at no like dramatic impact to their way of life? Because I don't. You know what I mean? That's incredibly rare. And given the circumstance of this case, especially given why he took a shot at these guys, the idea of him getting financially demolished to pay that money to them is tough, dude. So we're going to go through that right now. So UFC heavyweight champion Cain Velasquez has made his first move. Okay, so we already know this, that he was moved to Wasco. But what we found out today is that based on the terms of his sentencing, Velasquez becomes eligible for parole for the first time in March of 2026. But that date could change based on the retired UFC heavyweight knocking off additional time for good behavior, participation in certain prison programs, etc. So he could be doing way less than a year. Like, if he behaves, he could get paroled. That right there would only be 11 months. So we're looking at potentially much less time than that, which is very exciting, obviously, if you're, supportive of Cain. But again, the larger concern at this point now becomes the financial responsibility that he's going to have. But let me finish this part so we understand exactly what's going on. So while Velasquez was issued a 5-year sentence, he immediately had 3+ years knocked off due to his time already served after he spent 8 months behind bars following his initial arrest, when he was denied bail several times. When Velasquez was eventually released, he was placed under house arrest and wore an ankle monitor, so that time was also removed from his sentence. So unless something dramatically changes, Velasquez should potentially go home as early as March of 2026. I guess that's not what you said earlier, though. They said that additional time could be knocked off. Neither here nor there. Okay, so here's the next part, though, right? The next court date for Velasquez comes on April 16th, when he faces restitution for his crimes, which is where a judge issues a financial penalty that is due to the victims in the case. Restitution can include lost wages, medical costs, therapy and counseling, and even insurance deductibles. So I am going to say pretty confidently that it's going to be a big number. He shot a guy. I mean, at the end of the day, regardless of the circumstances, he shot a guy. Now, if he took those shots and it didn't hit the stepdad, you got a completely different situation, but it hit the stepdad. That's what I was saying about where I thought that it was possible he might get a much longer sentence. And I think had he had a different judge, that's exactly what would have happened. Had he not hit the guy, who knows? But certainly on the financial side, we needed counseling. Okay, well, I mean, really? Like, are you sure that you want to play this game? You need counseling? Hey, let's trade how much counseling his kid is going to need for how much counseling you need from being scared of Cain. Like, come on, dude. But medical expenses, lost wages. This guy says that he can never work again. That's what his dad is saying. Okay. Like, he's saying he can never work again. That is tremendous financial responsibility. He's basically, the way this works, and I know this very well. My dad was the medical legal director at Kaiser when he was still, when he was still working. And so I know how all of this works. He was the guy who would make the final decision on what settlements were going to go out to people based on circumstances of these cases. And I know exactly how this works, is they calculate how much a person earned per year, and then there's a certain number of years that they could have worked. And if this guy really did work with his hands, which is what I understand, and he is unable to do that anymore, if he made 60 grand a year and he had another, 17 years to work, that's easy math. And then you add, in addition to that, okay, all of the medical costs, okay, and then you add, in addition to that, pain and suffering, and then you add, in addition to that, like, it's going to be a massive number. It's just inevitable. It's going to be a 7-figure number, okay? Now, I mean, I understand there's like this idea that former UFC champion, they have tons of money. Now, I don't know Cain's finances, but a person who has saved a couple $1 million is in a great spot if they have, spent responsibly. They've got that money. They can live on the interest in some cases, whatever. But if someone hits you with a $1.4 million judgment and you have to pay that out, it's a financially crushing development. Crushing. Completely changes the outlook for the rest of your life. And again, given the circumstances, I hate that this is inevitably going to happen for them, This is also in addition to the fact that he has not been able to work for years. He's on house arrest. He can't, what's he supposed to do? You know what I mean? He was in prison before that, and he doesn't know. He has no idea if he's going to get locked up permanently. Can't take a job. So, yeah, this is just, it's concerning. It's concerning. I don't know. I actually don't have anything else to add to this story, except that I hope it works out. I hope everything works out for Cain, obviously. So when a celebrity launches a meme coin, you find out a lot about that celebrity. How much influence do they really have? How much faith do people have in the projects that they put their name behind? And what are their ethics? Is this a project that is just cash grab? Are they just trying to extract money from the fans that they have? Or do they actually have a plan to try to, really make this thing happen, and so on, so forth, etc. Now, Conor McGregor just went with a meme coin launch a few days ago, and this was an unparalleled disaster. I don't think I've ever seen a meme coin launch that went worse if you are trying to measure the status that a certain celebrity may or may not have in that moment. Now, I think that there are other factors relating to how bad this went, okay? But if you don't know what the punchline of this is, I'm doing this in order on purpose, and starting with the announcement of the meme coin, and then we're going to get to what just happened today, which is the end result, which, again, absolute catastrophe for Conor McGregor and anybody who was helping with this project. And I want to take you back here, though, because if I'm thinking through the recent history of meme coin launches, if we're in the mixed martial arts community, everybody obviously remembers Khamzat Chimaev's launch, where he promoted a meme coin and then it just collapsed. Like, they literally just stole everybody's money. Like, the second that people got in, the people who were the people whose coin it was were just selling. They just literally extracted any money from anybody dumb enough to have bought that coin. Adam22 literally just did this with a meme coin. You guys, if you don't know who Adam22 is, it's the No Jumper podcast. So he does a meme coin launch after specifically talking about how meme coins are scams. CoffeeZilla reached out to him and was like, "What are you doing, Adam22?" And he was like, "Hey, how else am I going to pay for blah, blah, blah?" And then like a month or two later, he's like, "Yeah, we're bankrupt." So it was a desperation move that Adam22 made when they launched their meme coin. And now, you don't have to have like that long of a memory to be able to put these things together. I remember things like that, right? I remember you launched the meme coin. I remember you sending that weird email to, CoffeeZilla. And now I remember that you just said that your company's going bankrupt a month later. And it's like, oh, okay, ipso facto, probably did that out of desperation. So given that Conor McGregor had all of his sponsors pulled their sponsorships away from him, where he was probably making, not even probably, he was making millions of dollars a month, which went to nearly zero overnight because of this case in Ireland, which I will continue to defend him on. I do not believe that he actually assaulted that girl, and we can get into the details of that if you want, but I've talked about it extensively on my channel. Go look it up if you think I'm being unreasonable. Bottom line is, if you're telling the truth, you shouldn't have any problem with people looking at CCTV footage, okay? So if you tell a story, another person tells a story, and one of you is like, nope, I don't want anyone to see the video of what happened. It's like, that person's lying. Pretty straightforward. That person's lying. If the other person was like, show them everything, usually that person's telling the truth, and that's exactly what this is. Conor McGregor is doing everything to try to show everyone the security footage from the hotel, which is damning to her case, and she's filing injunctions to not allow anyone to see the CCTV footage. Nonetheless, when the jury found him accountable for this assault that she said that he did, then boom, every single sponsor pulled their money from him, right? And now he does a meme coin launch. And I mean, are we looking at an Adam 22 situation? Conor spends a lot of money. I realize people think that, like, if you can connect back to a couple $100 million paydays for somebody, you think that money never runs out. You're crazy. You can spend that money. Like, you absolutely can spend that money. And it doesn't take very long if you are living like a billionaire, caravanning all over the French Riviera or whatever. Anyway, it's neither here nor there, okay? But one thing that I wanted to point out that I just think is funny is that the Hawk Tuah girl had the absolute #1 most catastrophic to their career meme coin launch ever, okay? Logan Paul had a really bad one, but he's obviously bounced back and gotten even bigger. But Logan Paul's career was built on a much more solid foundation than a girl who got asked a question while she was wasted in the streets of Tennessee and reference spitting on a dude's junk, Not exactly an insurmountable amount of social credibility if you do the wrong thing earlier in your career. And she launched a meme coin, which ended up becoming a criminal problem for her. She just got cleared of criminal charges, okay? Everyone's like, oh, they cleared her of criminal charges. You're like, well, that's good. The only celebrity that actually faced criminal charges as even a potential thing that could have happened, she's not going to get charged. I guess that's a positive, but I don't feel like her career is going to do anything good as a result of a massive crypto scam that she was the face of, right? Which brings us to Conor McGregor's launch. And again, given the history, it's a questionable decision to do any kind of meme coin launch in general. But what really made it crazy that he did it now, which kind of leads me towards maybe he actually really does need money, is this right here. Okay, so the meme coin launch's success is going to be heavily based on the crypto market in general. Okay, like when everybody's making money on crypto, you can do these launches and people are trying to get in fast because they know things are going to go up. Even if they know it's going to crash in the long run, they're trying to get in early and go up. You know what I mean? It's like, but when the crypto market's down, you're not like, it's a much harder hill to climb. And Conor launched this thing on the backside of, look at this. Okay, so February 4th, it's at 100,000. And I mean, right before that, it got all the way up to like, I don't know, 105. And right now it's 78. That's a huge drop. I mean, that's an absolutely huge drop. And so the timing made no sense whatsoever. And the results indicated exactly that. Plus the fact that Conor is apparently not in a very good spot with the public because it bombed to a level that they ended up refunding everybody's money. That's the punchline, but there's a lot more to it. So we're going to look at it right now. So in stories like this, I like to look at the announcement itself so that then we can look at the end result, because it's like, here's all these, this is what you should be excited about. And then it's like, none of this worked, So mixed martial arts champion Conor McGregor launches meme coin. This is April 5th. I think he actually launched it on the 4th. McGregor and the project's team highlighted the fairness of the sealed bid auction approach compared to conventional meme coin launches. So MMA champion Conor McGregor launched a meme coin called Real on April 5th and will reportedly feature staking rewards and voting rights for token holders. Spokesperson for the project told Cointelegraph that the token has launched through a sealed bid auction to eliminate snipers and bots hijacking the token launch. Mistake, apparently. The project was developed in collaboration with Real World Gaming Decentralized Autonomous Organization. This is not some celebrity-endorsed bullshit token. It is a real game changer that will change the crypto ecosystem as well as make real change in the world. The sealed bid auction is the new way of launching a token to prevent rug pulls and snipers. And Conor said, I changed the fight game. I changed the whiskey game. I changed the stout game. Now it's time to change the crypto game. This is just the beginning. Get real. And this, is that like, oh, there must have been a video along with it. Okay. Now, the meme coin narrative peaked following the launch of Trump meme coin by U.S. President Donald Trump. However, savvy traders continue hunting meme coins, keeping the market alive. But, you know, I mean, look, dude, like, this is showing the same exact thing that I just showed you, which is the, you know, the market dip on Bitcoin. And here's where we ended up. Okay. This is where we ended up. And like I said, refunds for anybody who bought the coin. So Conor McGregor's broken the trend of viral figures using cryptocurrencies to get rich quick. Already the richest MMA star, the Notorious, might not have needed more money. Well, you don't know that, dude. But it didn't stop him from unveiling his real token earlier this month. The coin was put on a 28-hour pre-sale with a minimum target of 3.6 million. Okay, is that a lot of money for a coin launch, guys? 3.6 million if you're Conor McGregor? No. How much did Donald Trump raise in on his meme coin? Let's actually look that up. So after a day, the Donald Trump meme coin's collective value is 27 billion. 27 billion was the aggregate value of all of those tokens. Wow. Okay, so Conor's had a minimum of 3.6 million, and on April 6th, developers of the token broke the news that they didn't hit their pre-sale targets and any investors would be getting refunds. The token isn't being traded publicly yet. This is not the end, they remarked. I think it's fair to say that given that crypto launches are based almost entirely on faith in the project, and you launched and failed, I think this is the end. Conor McGregor's crypto scheme raises red flags. As per Etherscan, 97% of the total supply of tokens is held by one wallet address, which presumably was controlled by the team behind the token. This raises concerns about decentralization and market manipulation and whether the scheme was a type of rug pull. Rug pulling is a crypto-centric scam where private investors hold a majority of the token and sell their share when the price of the token has been inflated for huge profits. This happened with viral sensation Haley Welch, Hawk to a Girl, and her Hawk coin, which lost 95% of its value within hours of launching due to private investors selling their bulk share at peak price. If and when Conor's real token gets relaunched, it's best approached with utmost caution. I would certainly say that that is probably good advice. Now, as a reward for anyone who stuck around this long, I figured that I would share this little piece of information with all of you guys because only my most hardcores make it all the way to the end of the videos. But Larry Fink says Bitcoin could replace the dollar as the world's reserve currency because of national debt. Okay, so obviously that is a very scary thing for a person to say who is in Larry Fink's position. And if you don't know who Larry Fink is, the CEO of BlackRock. So when he says things about markets, you better listen up. And given the fact that you know, his reasoning behind that is that the national debt is out of control. And there's, in this article, it says that we're going to be spending nearly $1 trillion a year on interest on our debt. Okay. Like, I don't think people are really understanding how big of a deal our national debt is. But if people don't trust our bonds, which are based on the United States' ability to pay them back, that's lent money, then our dollar collapses. And there you go. Okay, they're already talking about replacing the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. When Larry Fink is talking about that, you should listen up because serious things are going. But when he says that Bitcoin could be the replacement, you don't want to be a person who's not holding any Bitcoin if that happens. So just buy enough to where you don't have FOMO. That's all. I'm not saying don't buy the JOF coin, you know, unless I launch one. I'm just kidding. But definitely buy Bitcoin at least a little bit so that if it ends up being the global reserve currency, you won't be one of those ones. Oh man, if I would have just put in like $1,000, I'd be a millionaire. You know what I mean? Anyway, but I love you guys. Thank you for the support. Subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. Bye-bye.